Hey, everybody. Hi, Jalal Abasi. Great to see everybody. Hi, Joy. I'm here with Psychiatric, also known as Rick. And I'm so glad that you guys can join us. And I'm so glad to meet you, Rick.
I'm so glad to meet you as well.
It's
Thank you for inviting me.
oh, you're welcome. I love to have people on who can help grow my community during this very difficult time we're living in.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you having me on as well. And thank you for inviting me and getting my community expanded as well.
Exactly. So this
Yep.
is very purposeful. You have so many things that you talk about in your writing that I want to talk about today. You and I are both in mental health. Again, when I saw your handle, psychiatric,
Yeah,
psychiatric, I was like, one, that's brilliant. Did you come up
yeah.
with that? Did you
I
come up
did
with that?
come. I actually did come up with that. It literally just hit me out of nowhere because, I'm a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner. And so the first word in that title of PMHMP is psychiatric, and I thought, well, that has my name in it. I could probably just capitalize the R and put a K at the end, and I got psychiatric. So yeah,
Wonderful.
yeah,
Wonderful. The name says what you're like, it's you hear it and you know what you're gonna be talking about, and,
yeah,
so you're a psychiatric nurse practitioner,
correct.
and I am a licensed clinical social worker, and in our field, people in mine and your roles often collaborate, do clinical work, sometimes together. I work with a lot of psychiatric nurse practitioners and psychiatrists, and so I'm used to that multidisciplinary practice.
Yeah, and same here. And one thing I really like to do is I like to read the social worker or the licensed uh, marriage and family therapist or whoever might be taking care of the patient on the other end. I like to read their notes so I can get a kind of a good back history on what's going on because at the end of the day, you guys really are the ones that are doing the hard work. A psych nurse practitioner is just doing 2 minutes of psychotherapy, and it's just that's not where the real psychotherapy happens. The hard work actually happens on the other side. And so, like, obviously, I appreciate that. My sister-in-law is a social worker. She's a therapist as well. So, yeah. Yep.
I appreciate that so much, and,
Yep.
you know, we do complement and supplement each other's work. I couldn't
Yes.
do any of the stuff I'm doing without a psychiatric provider for my clients, and you can't do what you need to do without therapists for yours.
Yep. That's
Yeah,
exactly right. Yeah.
yeah. How long have you been a psychiatric nurse practitioner then?
Honestly, just this last year. Um,
Okay,
yeah.
tell me
So,
about that.
my background in healthcare, I've been doing this for about 16 years. So I started out working like in a med surge area and
Okay,
which is just, your everyday, that's where people go to the hospital and when they're sick they get admitted and that's where, they get care in a med surge unit usually.
okay.
Unless they're super sick, then they go to the ICU or the step down ICU, um, which, that's where sickness gets really bad. And then after a while, I moved into the emergency department, and I worked there about a decade. Inside the ER is where you get to see a lot of patients, and I've seen and done everything from helping to open people's chest after a car accident, doing cardiac massage, seeing the most horrific things you can possibly think of. And so, as you can imagine, I got, not to mention that I already have some PTSD from being a combat veteran, but working in an emergency department that's
Wow.
another whole nother world. Um, I fast forward a little bit, I actually ended up working in the ICU as well. And that's where, I kind of actually got away from the chaos into a more controlled chaos situation. Um, but after working in the ICU for a little bit, I got to COVID, and so COVID changed a lot of things for me. Um, so I talk about this in one of my articles. When I was working in the ICU, COVID hit. That's about when it hit. Was when I had just been there for only a couple months. I came from the ER. Um, and inside the ICU, I was taking care of one after another COVID patient. And I think a lot of people kind of forget about how bad it was during that time. Um, Especially people that worked in the hospitals. They weren't, I don't know, being believed by a lot of people.
Wow.
We were having to deal with a lot of COVID deniers, which is weird because I was seeing literally people die every single day, which I had never seen even in the ER. I'd never seen people die every day. And yeah, so working in the ICU, I you get to kind of work with some people if they're not intubated and they're awake, but they're really sick. You get to sort of build a relationship with them, because you're that one nurse that's with them all day, your whole shift. You usually have a one-on-one or a two-on-one, so two patients to one nurse ratio. Um, and I I don't want to give this guy's name away, but I don't remember what I named him in my article, but I think it was Jim or something like that. Um, he
It was
was
Jim,
a
because I read the
oh,
article
oh,
this
is it?
morning.
Oh,
It was
okay.
Jim.
Oh, was it?
Yep,
Okay, it was Jim.
yep,
I picked
uh-huh,
a name out of the air and
yep,
put it in there.
it was Jim. Yep.
Okay, and anyways, just a hell of a guy, and I knew him from the ER because he had a lot of medical problems, and he was kind of a large guy, and I was seeing for my whole shift, which I was there for 4 days. I saw him come up, and I built this deeper relationship more than I had when I saw him in the ER. And I saw him just gradually decline over this 4-day period. So it started off by putting him on oxygen, high flow. Um, he ended up getting worse. His oxygenation was not coming up, so we had to put him on what's called BiPAP. So it's a bi-level ventilation system. It's a mask that sits over your face, sort of like CPAP. People wear that for sleep when they have sleep apnea. Um, that wasn't working, so it got to a point where we had to intubate him and put a tube in his throat and get him on a mechanical ventilator. And things started going really wrong in the room. We couldn't get an airway on him because his neck is so big. We couldn't find his airway, so the doctor was having trouble finding his airway. And I was holding his hand. I was like, "You're good, man. We're good." And he looked at me and he said, "I'm okay, Rick. I'm okay. Things are okay." And I just remember this. It was so traumatic because right after that, the doctor said, "We can't do this. We need to cut a emergency tricothyroid and put a tube in his throat and just get it right in instead of bypassing his throat, his trachea, or going into its trachea." And so cut him. Things were going really wrong. He's bleeding everywhere, and then he just coughs out of the hole in his throat. I know this is graphic for some people, but his a mist of bloody
Oh,
stuff came out, and it got all over me.
wow.
And I thought, "Oh boy, I know I'm going to get COVID now.
Oh, boy.
I know for sure I'm getting COVID now because it's all over me."
Oh, that is so
Sure,
traumatic.
sure enough,
Oh
about
my god.
3 or 4 days later, I ended up getting a scratchy throat, and I was terrified because this was 2020 before the vaccines were out, and we didn't know what was going on,
Wow.
what to
And
do.
so many people, like you said, were dying.
They were dying every day.
So many people were dying. And it
Yeah.
really and in one of your articles, which about Jim, just I'm gonna say this part, just what people had to go through dying, not being able to stand next to or be with their loved ones
Yeah.
because of COVID.
Yep.
So it was like people were dying and it was like dying a very lonely death. And
Yeah.
so that made the fear of dying even greater, I believe, for so many.
Yeah. And that was another part of it too. You know, I would be, in a patient's room, they'd be intubated, and I would go in there with an iPad, and the family members would be on the other side of the iPad just bawling because they couldn't come up. It was so terrifying for everybody, and I would just set the iPad up right in front of in front of the patient on their table, and they would just cry, and I sometimes would cry with them. Um,
I would
it
have
was
been.
such a traumatic experience for me. Like said, is it I have combat experience. I was an infantryman. I fought on the front lines in Iraq in 2003 and 2004, and this was on par with the level of stress and fear that I had.
Wow.
I didn't want to bring anything home to my family. I didn't want to, even though my wife was working as an ER nurse at the time, um, we both
Wow.
were, coming home at the end of the day, just like staring at each other, like, what just
Mm.
happened today? Um, yeah, and
Wow.
it's crazy. People forget that what the hell
You know
happened.
what, Rick? I'm really glad we're talking about this today. And I think just thinking about it out loud, we should talk about this a lot more because, like you're saying right now, we don't even talk about it anymore. We
Yeah,
don't
it's like
even acknowledge this collective trauma where a million of our just people in this country died.
yeah,
And of course, it was swept under the rug because of the denial, as you were talking about, the COVID denial.
yeah,
And so, like, we never got to process, obviously, this trauma, and we still are processing it.
yeah,
It is important to talk about this for these very reasons. And of course, I want you to talk more to the degree you're possible about your own experiences. But with trauma, as you know, it's really hard to treat
yeah,
because of the way that traumatic memory affects us and our brains and our minds and how flashbacks are triggered and different trauma symptoms are triggered.
yeah,
And but that telling, in some models of trauma treatment, talking about what happened is an
yeah.
essential part of the healing.
Exposure therapy. Yeah. So and Kobe here on the comments says he also was there. He remembers. Yeah, it was horrible. Um, yeah. So
Pretty
after that situation, um, I ended up getting COVID, I talk about it in my article how after I got COVID, I ended up isolating in my house in a separate room. Um, Again, like this was in the beginning, the strain was really bad, so I was afraid of dying. I have some lung issues from Iraq, from breathing in, uh, you know, fumes from burn pits.
right.
Um, so, that's another thing the government
Wow.
did to me. So I
Wow.
appreciate that. And yeah, so I'm over here thinking this could be it, man. So I'm in my room, in my spare bedroom. We're packing towels under and it was around Christmas time. So I didn't get to experience Christmas that year. My family all kind of did. Um, but I'm packing towels under the door. I'm trying not to get anything out, and I'm proning, and I'm trying to take some deep breaths. I got a nice center spirometer in my room, and I'm just trying to just do better. And it was obviously getting worse. And so a few days after I got COVID originally, or after I tested positive for it, I started feeling short of breath. I couldn't stop coughing. Um, and I realized things were getting bad for me.
Goodness.
And so I checked my oxygen. It was down in the 70s. I called my wife. I said, we need to go to the hospital. I'll put an N95. You put an N95, just take me to the ER. And so I come into the ER and I just remember everybody's face because I know everybody there. I work there.
Mm.
And they're like, oh no, you know, oh no, Rick's got COVID. And, they put me in an isolation room and that's where the isolation started, you know. So I'm by myself in this isolation room with, negative pressure air and they put me on oxygen and I am starting to think this is not going in the right direction. Um, Ended up sending me up to the floor. Uh, I was in a med surg room. Things started getting even worse there. So they put me on high flow. High flow wasn't working. So they sent me to the ICU. I got put on a BiPAP. And I remember because the nurses there, they know that I'm a RN, so like they trusted me to just sort of handle myself because nobody was coming in. I was all alone. I didn't have any visitors. So I'm adjusting my BiPAP. I'm setting my drips. I'm doing all the things that a nurse would do. So I had a nurse in the room
Oh,
the whole day, and I'm proning and I'm trying to. So, anyways, it got to a point where um, things got so bad. So COVID can cause a lot of swelling and swelling inside of your body. So what actually happened to me was that my intestines got so swollen that they strangled my gallbladder, and the
what?
gallbladder got necrotic, and I
Wow.
became septic, and it
Oh my
was
god.
so bad. So I had to go to
Oh my god.
emergency surgery. They had to cut me open, take out my gallbladder, but it was fried. So they were this
Wow.
close to having to cut into my liver, which that would have been bad. Um,
Oh,
Anyways, yeah, so
that's a near death experience.
very close. I was septic.
Right? That
Yeah,
is,
it
as you
was
know, I'm a layperson, but I know with
yeah,
sepsis, you are on the edge of life.
yeah, I was. Um, so anyways, they took my gallbladder, what was left of it, they took it out, gave me, steroids, things to bring down the swelling. Long story short, I started getting better.
Oh,
Um,
thank goodness.
so started getting better, put on oxygen. They sent me home on home oxygen. Um, and it took me months to recover. Um, so anyways, that whole period of isolation, um, started messing with my head. I started getting really down into a spiral. Um, Depression, PTSD from Iraq, mixed with PTSD from the ER and the ICU. And I hadn't been dealing with any of it. You know, that's nurses don't really like to deal with things like that. They just go about their business, take care of other people, come home, and then take a shower, and that's it. Um, that's where my mental health journey began, right there during COVID. So, um,
Wow.
yeah, it was insane.
Wow. Really? You hear about these other very serious and, again, deathly experiences, say, on the ventilator, but I never knew about that type of swelling inside the body like that.
Yeah,
I mean, COVID
it's
had so many effects on this body and brain that we don't even talk about. That, again, COVID was like a chapter. People think it's over. People are still affected. People still have, right? People still have symptoms
I
or
still have
side
symptoms.
effects or
Mhm.
permanent damage.
Yep. I still have brain fog. I still have, I have trouble finding words. I have trouble getting things out sometimes. Um,
Wow.
Memory issues, like it all started back then. Um, Before that I was on it, sharp, very, had a good memory. Like it's things have changed. And what worries me too is that it's so still new, you know, how do we know that things aren't going to pop up in 10 years, 20 years? Like you get chicken pox as a kid, then you get shingles when you're 40.
Right.
How do you know that something's not going to pop up later on? I don't know. So it's a
Well, we
virus. It's
don't,
novel.
right. We don't
Yeah,
know. We don't know, and we should be
yeah,
continuing to study and research and put resources into understanding. And as we know, the and you've written a lot about and like by the way, everybody, I just want to say again, this is psychiatric and I'm a huge fan of what he's been writing about. And you talked about, the CDC, I believe CDC director and abortion
yep,
and like tracking, monitoring, surveilling. I like how you um, I really like and I'm trying to do this to some degree as well, but I'd like to again collaborate how you're really combining because we have to poli- the political pressures, the political insanity, all politics in real life and health and mental
yeah.
health, like and abortion and basically health because mental health, by the way, you guys, mental health is health,
It
right?
is. Yeah,
It's you know, it's not separate. Our mental health is part of our health and the way that the political environment is affecting our health, whether it be the policy, the rhetoric, the impact, the diseases spreading. I mean, there's no more important time
yeah,
to be having these conversations about our health and our mental health.
yeah,
And another thing that I like is, and you even talked about, of course, just now, talking about your own story, your own mental health, your own experiences.
yeah,
That helps people feel like it helps people understand, like, you really can understand,
yeah.
right? A lot of times in mental health or medicine, the provider seems like the expert, but, like, they
Yeah,
may not have ever dealt with any of the things themselves.
exactly. Yeah. And that's in my experience, that actually is a plus. It helps a lot. So I like I like I don't want I like, but it gives me joy in a way to help someone that is in crisis or is dealing with trauma. Um, because I have been there. I understand. Um, when I talk to a patient, and they tell me certain things, I can empathize deeply with them and they can feel that. That is, people know when you're full of shit. And people know that like I'm just throwing pills or whatever, or I'm saying, "Hey, listen, I've been there. I know what it feels like. I don't know what your journey is like right now, but I can tell you that I have a similar situation that I've been through, you know, and I've been through all this trauma and you can come out of the other side of it, you know? You can come out of the other side of it. Between myself and someone like you, a therapist on the other end, we're going to work together as a team. We'll get you out of this. And that's the thing is people don't feel like they have when you're in the middle of crisis, when you're in the middle of depression, like major depressive disorder, and you're like spiraling, you don't see that there is any light at the end of the tunnel. You
No,
don't feel like there's
no,
no way out of this.
right.
And that's a dangerous place to be because I've been there before too, where I've gone to my own psych provider and I'm not on the right regimen or the right pill didn't work or something like that, and I'm thinking, okay, this is not going to work.
Yep,
And you get just thinking these scary thoughts like, should I even be here anymore? I can't deal with this pain,
right.
and that suicidal thought. That's when you're the most vulnerable. And so when you deal with someone who's been through the ringer, I can tell people, listen, I know where you're at right now, and please understand that I understand where you're at. I know that you're in a dark place. We're gonna do this together. We're gonna get you out of there. And I promise you, you think about the next minute, you might have one good minute today. Might have one good minute, but tomorrow maybe we'll go for 2 minutes. or 3 minutes. And eventually it turns into a couple days, couple weeks, and a couple months, and you're going to get better. And so they can feel that when you tell them I've been there, you know.
Absolutely, absolutely. I was thinking about how when I was first started becoming trained, this was back in the '90s. The field of social work, kind of a lot of it, some of it comes from psychology, and there's a lot of patriarchal fathers of psychology. And
Yeah.
there were originally, I think, in the field a lot of kind of not in social work per se, but in psychology, kind of ideas around the boundaries that we had to maintain. And in social work, I think it's more flexible because, social work was founded in, like, the settlement house movement where people were really living in the same community together. And,
Mhm.
um, I personally have found that sharing more about who I really am and helping people know I'm a real person, that is absolutely helpful to the therapeutic process. And
Yeah.
the idea of this sort of blank slate, or the object of projection that is not really open, that type of therapy, in my opinion, it's not relevant any longer, at
Yeah.
all. And,
Mhm.
I mean, maybe there's people who would disagree, but, I think being really focused on what's happening right now, how we can work on it, how I can support you. You were talking about, like, with people with depression, the loss of hope. So much
Mhm.
of what we have to do, as you were saying and describing, is give people hope.
Hope.
And, a lot of people don't understand depression. In fact, a lot of my clients who have depression deal with people in their lives who don't understand how disabling it is or debilitating depression is. They think it's a choice, they think it's an attitude, they think it's you're not working hard enough or thinking positively enough. And in
Yeah.
reality, depression is a very, very serious illness.
Absolutely.
It is. It's a
Yeah.
serious, serious illness. And if you don't treat it, it will get worse, like any other
Mhm.
illness. And the
Absolutely.
same goes for anxiety and post traumatic stress disorder and ADHD, for sure. Any of these illnesses that don't get treatment or attention, they will get worse.
Yeah. And actually, I'm in the middle of writing another one right another article right now about ADHD because I actually have ADHD. Um, and I take medication for it, and it had changed my life, you know? Um, that's kind of the thing. So, another thing is this stigma for medications too. I understand there's a whole thing about it. Like, I know that there's the pharmaceutical industry end of it and all of that. Um, I do get that. But the way I see it is in mental health, and this is something I didn't really kinda get myself until it hit me personally. Um, because after I got out of Iraq, I went 10, 15 years without any help, no therapy, no medication, anything, and it finally came crashing down on me. But when
It's
you
bound to
find
happen. It will
yeah,
happen. Yeah.
it will happen.
Yeah.
And the way I see it when I talk to patients, I say, "Listen, you have absolutely all the choice in the world. You don't need to take a medication, no problem at all. Go to therapy, that'll work for you." Um, but I'm telling you, at the end of the day, if you have diabetes and I'm offering you insulin, you would take the insulin because there's no stigma attached to it. It's like, okay, I'm taking insulin. Or,
Mhm.
you have a cardiac
That's
issue, you
right.
have a little high blood pressure, and I give you, something for your high blood pressure. No one's gonna There's no stigma attached to that.
None.
It's okay, I
Right.
got this heart problem. I take this pill, it helps me with my heart. I don't want to die.
Right.
But when somebody has major depressive disorder or persistent depressive disorder or something like that, or bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, or whatever,
Mhm.
you have an ailment that I have a pill that will help with your symptoms, and then that will quiet the noise to help you get therapy,
That's
and you
right.
can
That's
actually
right.
work with the therapist and get through your problem. But if you have something screaming in your ear, how are you gonna get better? How are you even gonna try to move on to the next step? You can't. So I got to lower that volume for you with this medication, and that's the way I saw it. That's the way I see it, and it did help me.
Mhm.
I went through therapy for years. I still have a therapist. I still have a psych provider as a provider.
Yep. I'm so
So
glad that you brought this specific story up because in my experience in mental health, and I worked a lot in community clinics. I have a private practice now, so it's different. But in community clinics, the norm is for somebody to try therapy first.
yeah,
Then you could see the psychiatrist.
yeah,
Well, that's not always the right order.
no,
Sometimes the person needs the medication, often, to be less anxious to go to
yes,
therapy.
that's right.
Yes,
Yeah, if you can't get out of bed because you're completely debilitated, how are you going to get the therapy?
that's right.
So yeah, no, I agree with you 100%.
You know,
Yeah, that's
so sometimes I really you know, have an appreciation for the fact that there is such a stigma that even the field of mental health has sort of assuaged the concern of, "Do I need medication?" Rather
yeah,
than saying like, "Oh, medication will be really helpful." And
yeah,
so that's often what I do with my clients is, of course, it's up to you, but consider it because it could
yeah,
very much help with these
hmm,
symptoms. And I gotta tell you, psychiatric, I haven't had one client that was upset that they went on medication.
yeah, not insane.
Not one.
Yeah,
And most of them said, I wish I did this sooner.
I'm one of them.
A
I wish I had
lot of
done it
people
sooner.
say that. Yeah.
You think you can change this chemical imbalance that you have? You know what I mean? You can't just change it. You can't
Right.
just think, okay, I'm going to move some serotonin into the synaptic cleft, and no, that's not how it works. You have to take a medication just like you do for your insulin for diabetes, just like you do for your cardiac problem, for your whatever else you got.
Yep.
It's the same thing. So,
That's right.
mhm,
That's right. Um, so yeah, sounds like you and I both talk about things in a similar way when it comes to
mhm,
medication, how to talk about that with clients. Obviously, all of your clients are ones being considered for medication. Mine
mhm,
aren't necessarily. They might be
yeah,
on medication when they start with me, or they might start it after they see me. But I take medication myself as well. You know, I used to have a panic disorder that actually I did over time resolve, and I don't deal with panic anymore. And I share these things. I share
yep,
these things with people. I do.
yeah, absolutely. And I do too. So,
Yeah.
when you have RFK out there telling people that all these medications are going to cause autism or
Great point.
whatever they're going to, cause, it's ridiculous because it causes harm. People get afraid of it,
Yes.
they get scared of it, and it's not
Yep.
anything to be afraid of. You're talking about a lot of these medications have been tested by people that are way smarter than him. Most people are smarter than him, and
Yes.
they have gone through trials, scientific method, and it's not a fly by night situation. You know what I mean? It's a well tested situation, and so
Absolutely.
that's where health politics comes together. You have people in the administration that are saying that pregnant women shouldn't take Tylenol.
Wow.
And you're like, where are you getting this shit from? You have just, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Right.
So,
It's, so I remember when that was happening because, whenever these things happen, I really analyze what is the purpose, right? Why Tylenol? Why this thing? But if you really know what you're looking at, there is always a purpose to
mhm,
everything this regime does. And in that case, and in so many cases, it's about creating mistrust between doctors and patients,
Mhm.
right? If your doctor is saying, "Take Tylenol," and RFK saying, "You can't take it," there's already then a question,
Yep.
and, people are obviously less empowered if they're listening to what the regime is saying instead of their doctor.
Yep.
And then somebody when wrote that, like, this is the purpose, essentially, somebody said, and that's why I love this community on Substack. I love interacting with people. Somebody said, "It's also because they want for women to be in pain."
Yeah.
And I thought, "Damn,
Damn.
I didn't
Damn.
even think of that one." And
Yeah.
it's so obvious as soon as it was said, but then, we're in such a dangerous environment right now as it comes to our health. I mean, food being poisoned, recalls, disease spreading, eradicated diseases coming back,
Mhm.
record high mental health issues, uh, the mental health of LGBTQ trans people not being able to get their medicines, their hormonal therapies. I mean, it's such a crisis.
It
It's
is.
such a crisis. Um, I had something I was thinking about asking you, because you're very political and so am I, and we're both in mental health.
Mhm.
Does it come up in your practice, the political environment? Do you talk about it? And if so, in what ways or when or how?
Yeah, so it actually does. It comes up a lot. I've noticed there is an uptick in anxiety and panic attacks and everything having to do with our current state of politics, having to do with
Yes,
our current state of America right now. What's
absolutely.
Trump gonna do? Is that going to affect me? Yeah, it's going to affect you. You know what I mean? And so I recently had a patient who came in and they were completely destroyed, inconsolable for a while. Let them cry, let it out. And turns out what's going on is their mom was picked up by ICE, and they had no idea where she went. They haven't had any, contact with her in over, like, 2 or 3 weeks, um,
Wow.
and it's like, you have destroyed this regime has completely destroyed this family. You don't even realize the stuff that happens downstream. This patient of mine was already dealing with, sexual assault trauma, depression, anxiety, and then you threw this shit on the top of them, and now they've gotta wonder where their mom is. Or is her mom safe? You watch the news, women are getting raped, there's little girls getting pregnant at ICE
Yep,
facilities
that's right.
from being raped, let's be honest.
Everyone's worst
Um,
nightmares, literally everyone's worst nightmares.
yeah,
Kidnapping, rape, child rape, impregnation, disappearing, deportation I mean, everyone's worst nightmares,
yeah,
truly, as policy,
mhm,
as norm, as political norm. Psychological terror,
yeah, eh,
true psychological terror and the reverberations that it has on a mass scale.
yeah, and it's
Yes,
going to it's going to get worse, I think, before anything gets
much
better,
worse. Much worse,
and
yes.
it's going to have, uh, generational trauma. There's going to be so much distrust of the government. There's already distrust. It's going to get worse with the families because now what you've done is you have traumatized the mother. She's in some facility somewhere, God knows where. You've traumatized the daughter, probably obviously the husband and all of the daughter's siblings. You have now traumatized an entire family, and they are going to have to deal with these things for years. Even if mom comes home, they're going to be distrustful of any
That's
government
right.
official.
That's right.
They're going to lose sleep. They're going to be panic attacks. There's going to be more anxiety. You have ruined that entire family, basically, from just being an asshole and Gestapo stealing a family member from the family.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
I can't even imagine what, and that's just for me, yeah, what do they call that? Six degrees of separation
Yes.
from somebody else. That's just 1 degree of separation for me now. I know this patient, and now I know that the mom has been kidnapped, and now you. There's imagine the entire country is now going to be affected by this. So
They,
yeah,
uh, they I think it was in July, was it 50,000 detentions or
I
arrests
think I
and
believe that's right.
detentions, you know, and then, like, the percentages of people who actually, I guess not who stay, because I think they keep people locked up, but basically, it's a very low percentage of people that they're picking up that had any criminal background, I'm sure, as we all know, right? I mean,
Yeah.
so it's just huge numbers of innocent people.
Hmm.
Huge numbers of innocent people, for years, for this whole decade, people, "Oh, that'll never how many people? That'll never happen. He's just saying that." That's not really gonna happen. I mean, we live in a democracy. "Oh, the Supreme Court won't let that happen." I mean, they've been promising it, and
Yeah.
people still, kind of really unable to acknowledge and accept the very gruesome reality that this is not only present, it is going to grow exponentially.
Yeah.
The funding is there. It's signed into law. A lot of people think with a blue wave that can solve this problem, but the reality is it is not easy to overturn laws. You have
Yeah.
to have big majorities,
Yeah.
which we won't have because the
Not
way
gonna
our
have it.
Congress works, it's very convenient. It's there are no big majorities. Everything is a razor thin margin. And so whatever they're doing now will be amplified
Yeah.
enormously.
And
Um,
you
yeah,
No, I'm just gonna say you have to also take into consideration that this Congress doesn't give a shit. The president of the United States has been credibly accused of rape, of assaulting and raping and beating a 13-year-old,
yep.
and everybody's like, whatever. Yeah, like, so imagine how much worse the shit is in the rest of the 3 million Epstein files, which who knows if we'll ever get that. Imagine how much worse it is in there, and
And
still,
it's
he
really bad
it's
because
really
the thing
bad.
is, I mean, I don't know. We don't actually need more files, right? We have enough to
Yeah,
do like so, it's like I'd rather people be lobbying their AGs to make arrests, find going through the Epstein files, locate the people in your state, bring that to your AG. That's actually maybe better, kind of energy than to just kind of keep release the Epstein files, release the Epstein files.
yeah,
I mean, what's in them alone right now is satanic ritual abuse, cannibalism, I mean,
Jesus.
infanticide. I mean, there's plenty. So it's not really, I don't, me personally, I don't expect anything to happen with any of these files. And I actually, last summer, when all of this began, I just kept telling people, like, this is not like we should just be organizing right now
Yeah,
because even though this sounds really important, like it's not actually going to bring down these oligarchs.
no,
It's not.
yeah,
Like so we better organize within our communities. I had a great conversation last night with one of the other Substackers, Spencer Gray, and I interviewed him specifically because he talks a lot about revolution. And
mm,
in terms of organizing in our communities, taking care of each other, setting up alternative markets, setting up common defense, learning how to protect yourself. Maybe at some point, if yes, maybe at some point there's some type of armed revolution, but the reality is it's a long way. We're a long way from there because right now we just have to like be able to survive and take care of each other. And I don't know. I think I know there's an election coming up in November, and a lot of people are hanging their hopes on that.
Yeah,
But I'm sort of wondering, like I kind of am hoping for maybe there to be um more of a reality check that none of those elections are really going to help us. So like I don't really want to wait to 2028. Like for
yeah,
example, let's just say, and I don't want this to be the case, but if the Save Act got, for example, well then at least people would really know like,
yeah,
we're not like voting is not necessarily going to get us out of that. I think
yeah,
my biggest concern is that people feel like they can show up every 2 to 4 years and vote or maybe give a little money or campaign, and, like, that's not gonna help any of us survive. We have to, like, grow food and, find out what our neighbors need and be able to provide it when they're
yeah,
gonna lose their house
yeah,
that they don't know is that they're not even aware is gonna happen, you know? So, yeah,
yeah,
just kind of what's gonna be needed in terms of helping people not just deal with their mental health, but surviving,
yeah. Erickson's
how
stage
are
is stage 1.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly,
food and shelter, that's
so
yeah,
food and shelter, right? So that over years, psychiatric, that's going to be more of our job, it will just automatically be that way because people will be more impoverished.
mhm,
People will be more ill. They will be, having more medical bills because they're not covered. So I just see um the need for revolution for real, but most people still believing an election can get us out of all this.
yeah. I personally also agree, and my wife gets upset when I say this because she doesn't want to she believes it, she doesn't want to believe it. But I think that again, these elections, the only thing that might come out of it that's good is that we could start seeing there's enough people that are starting to like, okay, we're gonna consolidate, maybe. But at the end of the day, you're right, this election, what's it gonna change? Not a damn thing. They're gonna impeach him,
Mm-mm.
big deal. He's been impeached 3 times, or 2 times.
Yeah,
It's not gonna change
exactly,
anything. Senate's not
exactly.
gonna, remove him.
No,
He's building this
no.
bunker.
Yep.
He's going to hole up in there, and
Oh, yeah.
what are we gonna it's gonna get really bad.
Yes, it
Economy's
is.
gonna crash, food's gonna be
Yep.
scarce, there's gonna be no fuel. It's, shit is gonna get scary. Like, I think it's gonna get real scary. And, I hate to think that
Yes.
because I've been in a really bad situation in Iraq where government was just not there, and what people do, and humans can be really ugly to each other, as you probably know.
Of course,
Um,
especially when they're just surviving, literally.
when you're surviving, you revert to, you know, I say things like, when I was in Iraq, I was younger. I was a kid. I was 20, you know. This was in 2003. I was 20. And I was a different human being back then. I knew now that we were there for some bullshit reason, and I used
You
to get a
did
lot of
at the
shit. I
time?
Oh, absolutely. I've always been kinda, like, skeptical of the government and everything, and I could go into a whole situation about that, about how Halliburton and, Kellogg Brown& and Root, they were in Iraq, they were making all this money, and who used to be the CEO of Kellogg Brown& and Root, Halliburton, Dick Cheney.
Right, right. Dick
So,
Cheney.
you know,
Right.
I just remember, and I used to say shit all the time, and I would get shit from my battle buddies all the time. Rick's just he's just a liberal from California. He's just a liberal, and so like I would get all that. But the thing is when I was in Iraq, without getting too deep into it, I was a different person. I was able to do things that I wouldn't want to do ever again, and that's part of what I went through therapy for the last 20 years for. I have a lot of moral injury from Iraq because I saw things that happened and I didn't speak up at the time. I was scared, young kid. But my point is that people can do ugly things when they're in a position that makes them desperate.
Right.
So I wanted to survive and live and come home back to home when I was in Iraq,
Yes.
and so I had to do things that I did not want to do, and I had to do. You know, um, obviously, read some of my articles. I go into a little bit about it, but I don't go too deep into certain things. Out in public. But um,
It's fair.
I know what people can do when they're desperate to live, and so
That's
things
firsthand
could.
experience.
Mhm. People can change. You would think that oh, that's just Mr. Smith over there, and he's a nice guy, and yeah, he'll kill your ass if he needs to come get some food out of your house. I don't know. I don't want to get too crazy and apocalyptic or anything like that, but I see things going
Well,
that
I
way.
don't think you are. In fact,
Yeah,
again, Spencer last night was talking similarly. We talked about how it's just reasonable and logical now for people to be armed,
yeah,
because there can be any number of scenarios in our future where
yeah,
understanding how to defend yourself in that way specifically is essential.
yeah,
And many people who never considered having a firearm have them, want them, will get
yeah.
them, me included, I would say there. And
Same.
it's just incomprehensible, right? To the how much our lifetime the world has changed that we
Yeah,
have to be different people now than we've ever been.
yeah. And in being armed, that's something. Same here. I am. And to be honest with you, who scares me is these MAGA hat wearing white people.
Yeah.
That's who I'm arming myself to protect myself from, because
I mean, statistically speaking, they're the
they're
most
the ones.
dangerous.
Yeah,
Um, the violence that we've seen has all been
yeah,
extreme right wing, you know, gunmen, essentially.
yeah,
Um, so, there's just no reason not to be terrified. And
yeah,
is that racial profiling? It is.
yeah,
But it's also, cultural profiling, this
yeah,
culture, the MAGA culture. Um, again, last night I talked to Spencer and he was talking about, like Christianity in America and Christian nationalism, kind of having been there all along. Obviously Christianity, but Christian nationalism and, kind of how the MAGA movement obviously evolved. But it's been a very violent culture.
yeah. It
It is
is.
a very violent culture.
Mhm.
And we all saw what happened on January 6th.
Yep.
And like you said, there's a bunker, and we have every reason to believe that there will be some they will not be giving up this White House. They will not be
They're
giving
not.
up this White House,
Nope.
right?
It's not gonna happen. And if you think that they will peacefully transition, you haven't been paying attention. They
Right.
are absolutely saying it out loud.
Out loud.
Steve Bannon's out there, "We're gonna go for 2028." Trump's wearing a hat, 2028.
Yep.
It's not a joke. they're not fucking around. They're being serious.
Yep.
And
Yep.
yeah, I think people need to realize that this is the plan.
Yep.
They
This
are
is the
not fucking
plan.
around.
And so even if we get some more blue representatives, if those representatives and senators aren't willing to basically stop an insurrection with their
Yeah,
physical bodies, because
yeah,
being in the halls of Congress voting on shit won't stop what's happening. If
yeah,
the people in charge do not believe in the rule of law, then making laws is going to make a difference.
yeah. What's it matter? It's
And
just
that's
yeah.
what we've seen.
Hmm.
What we've seen.
Yep.
So anyway, I realize it's almost time for us to go now. Can you believe it's been an hour?
No, that went by
Can
fast.
you believe it? The time
Yeah,
was flying, wasn't it?
it was.
Before I go though, let me just say hello to more people who joined,
Okay.
okay?
Okay.
All right, because we had a good crowd here. I'm gonna go back up because I saw Ralph. I saw you join earlier on. You said hi to Kobe before, and Kobe said that he was also a nurse. They were also a
Hmm.
nurse. Poppy also had joined. Christy, Ryan, Learner, Curious One said, "Well said" to somebody. Thank you. Sue, World's Best Boyfriend joined. Aw. Um, Jala Wabasi. I'm from West Africa, Gambia. Thank you for joining us then. Thank
Thank you.
you. I
Yeah.
hope that you enjoyed the show. David Weber joined. Let's see who else. Kevin Hale. I hope I got everybody here. Let me see. Let me just go right back. Glitter Puppy. Did I say hi to you earlier? I don't know. Charlie, hey, I saw you earlier join. Richard. Ah, this was great. We got to come back again. We
Yeah.
will
Yeah.
come back again, Rick.
Yeah.
And, we
Absolutely.
should also consider over the years to come what else we might be able to do collaboratively as mental health professionals and activists,
Hmm.
to, in whatever ways. I don't know, but I know we need to innovate.
Yeah.
I know there's going to come a time where, well, there already is, but where people need to have help in different formats.
Yeah.
Kind of like how, because I do online therapy now, I do the video in virtual. I never knew
Hmm.
that was possible,
Yeah.
right? There's so much we could do virtually if we need to with people.
You're
We could
right.
have support groups, right?
Good idea.
We could have mutual aid groups, but I'm just saying I always like to try to think outside the box and
Hmm.
figure out what we can do as community members in collaboration um,
Absolutely.
to help fill in some of these gaps that are going to be there.
I totally agree. Absolutely.
Okay, so that can be
Yeah.
one of the things that that's part of our mission for the next, like I said, decades to come.
Yeah. It's gonna be a while.
Because and that's how long we're going to know each other. Because I met you today, and I'm going to know you for
Yeah.
the rest of my life,
Yeah. And how fun. This
right?
is awesome. Yeah.
Well, it's not the best circumstances to be meeting under,
Yeah.
but I'm so glad I met you today.
Same here.
So glad I met you today,
Thank you for
and
inviting me.
you're so welcome. And let's stay in touch, right?
Okay. Hmm.
And thank you everybody so much for coming, and definitely check out Psychiatric's articles. They're amazing, and become a paid subscriber, and we'll be back another day, and see you soon. Okay. Bye everybody.
Bye.
Bye Rick. See you
Bye.
soon.
See you later.